Welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest, and this morning we've got a interesting job. So maybe close to the same content you've seen before. A lot of these jobs are similar, but this story is new. So this gentleman gave me a call the other night. I don't know, he had my personal number, so he has to have known somebody who had my old personal number. Anyway, so I'm assuming it's a referral, and he said that he was on the interstate and didn't have any brakes all of a sudden. So he said he was suddenly out of brakes, which isn't funny. I'm laughing because of what he did. He said he pulled up his phone and was able to Google. He said the traffic wasn't bad, so he was able to Google how to slow down without brakes. Somehow got all the way slowed down. I mean, obviously not somehow. He used his parking brake and downshifted and was able to get stopped. And so he's got his vehicle over close by at his brother's place, and we're gonna go over there. I actually did a diagnosis yesterday, which I'll put up right here. All right, here's the front driver's side. There's no fluid over here. The rotor looks okay on this side. However, here we have some serious wear on the rotor, as you can see there by the pattern. So the rotors would need to be replaced, as well as for the reason that we will illustrate here on the other side. Okay, front passenger side here, rotor kind of the little opposite on this side, looks okay on this side for all intensive purposes. Checking the brake line up here. Right there is fine. This is it here. So that is fine. There's no leakage on any of the lines in the frame rail. Going all the way to the back. Tires as well. Here all the way up until the caliper, there's no leakage. However, the caliper seal on the piston itself has busted out, so that fluid leaked out from the caliper itself. So the caliper will need to be replaced. They really don't get rebuilt because they have to be machined and it's more expensive anyway, so just replacing them is the best way to go, as well as all the brake fluid on the rotor here will have compromised the pads. Regardless, you'll need new rotors and pads just because of the amount of damage on the driver's side. But here's your culprit here that leaked out all your fluid. So you'll need a new passenger side caliper, new rotors, and new pads. As well as the master cylinder looks clean and doesn't show any signs of leakage. So that should be fine. So yeah, so we got that diagnosed yesterday. It needs a new caliper on that front passenger side, and it's gonna need new rotors and new brake pads. The brake lines look fine, all the way to the back looks fine. So here we go, we'll go pick up those parts, and he's pretty much just past the parts store, so it's kind of right on the way. We'll go get him, and then we'll get his car fixed up. Well, it's a truck. Fixed up, back on the road, because he needs it for work ASAP. So I had to wait on that caliper last night since we did the diagnosis pretty late. And here we are this morning bright and early, and we'll get this done. All right, so here we are. There's the truck over there. There's just a few visitor spots in this apartment complex over there. So I'm actually parked in reserved spots right now. That's like, people often ask, like, do I not get in trouble for working at apartment complexes? Never have. Doesn't mean I won't. I know I can get in trouble for parking in a reserved spot, but oh, actually there's some visitor spots right there. I'll just take one of those. If I didn't see those, then typically what I would do is just take this spot. Hopefully if somebody has an issue, then they just let me know, like, hey, is that you parked over there? And then I'll just happily move. But I did just notice those visitor spots, so I'll just move over there. That would be my typical what I would do. So I'm just gonna, but anyways, I'll back in over there, and then we'll just have to carry parts across the parking lot to get over to the truck. So it is what it is. All right, we'll get this jacked up safely. I'm trying to be quiet because I'm in an apartment complex and it's early in the morning. And last night I had the idea that I would bleed the back brakes before I took off the front caliper. I'm not sure exactly why I had that idea. Oh, now I remember. Because my theory was if I bled that front caliper and then I bled the back brakes, I would have to re-bleed the front caliper in case any air found its way through the system, because there's going to be some up by the reservoir. So yeah, I'll do the back brakes first before I take off these front wheels. I was trying to remember, I'm like, was that just some random thought I had in the middle of the night that made sense, but it doesn't. But I think that's why probably just the safest thing to do to eliminate having to go back and do something twice. So we'll bleed the back brakes first. I'm gonna get this jacked up safely, and before I even take off the tire, I'll just go ahead and fill up that reservoir and bleed the back brakes. Okay, first things first, we'll make sure we've got some fluid in this reservoir. We'll top it all the way off. I might need a little funnel for this. No, that'll be fine. Okay, go grab some more brake fluid. All right, so that is all the way full right now. That's just acting as a buffer, you know, being filled up past the max for being able to bleed those lines in the back. I'm assuming there's probably not any air in them, but I can't take that chance. So considering there may be a little bit of air at the top of those lines, I'm going to have to bleed them until clear fluid comes out. So we'll do that to both of those. We'll start with the furthest away from the master cylinder, which is going to be the rear passenger side, and then we'll do the rear driver side. Then we'll move up to the front, replace these brakes on this driver side first because I have it jacked up. And I have 2 jack stands under there. Typically I'll have 2, so if you ever see one that's not all the way touching, it's probably just a second safety, as well as most of the time I'll throw a tire under there. So sometimes I just don't like specify all this in a video, and it's good that people are concerned about my safety, but that's typically what's going on. Then we will move over to that side and replace the caliper as well. Look, I see a new alternator down there. So yeah, we will go ahead and get started in the back bleeding those brakes, and I'll just show you what it looks like once it's set up. All right, this looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun. If you can see how rusty that is, I'm gonna just be gentle with this and see if I can get it open. I don't know why that looks so bright on the camera. It's not that bright in daylight. That's nice. Okay, I think a 6-point socket's the way to go on that. Maybe I'll just tap it for a minute. Get some vibration in there. All right, so I'm just gonna use the 6-point socket since it's gonna grab every side of that evenly. 10mm, and hope for the best. Maybe just a little loosen, a little tighten. Loosen, there it goes. Nice. And give her a few little turns just to make sure she's open. That should be. And then we'll get our hose on there before it drips too much. And we'll clean that up regardless. It's so cold. This hose is old as well. It's just rigid. So, see if I can get it to loop upwards. That way no air finds its way back in there. Okay, there we go. Stay up, and I can see some fluid moving through, so that's nice. I'll just keep it doing that. Okay, looks like I'll just hold it by hand and just watch for that fluid to come through clean. Maybe do this. That'll work. I'm gonna get my light so I can see that fluid good, because if you can see it, like I mentioned a second ago, I cannot see that well, so. You know how people say there's an effect that when you walk through a doorway, you forget what you were doing? I think that effect is magnified tenfold with the doors of my truck. It's like every time I go up there, I can't remember what in the world I was going up there to do. So it took me a second to figure out. I went up there for the flashlight, but I got it. Here we are. That fluid's still dirty, so we'll let her keep coming here for a minute. And this is just considered a gravity bleed. So I'm gonna actually just let this go for a couple minutes while I go up there and start taking that tire off. Looks like this is a little rusty. I wonder if this tire is going to give me trouble coming off. Looks like it may. This is why I do not envy rust belt mechanics. This is the first time I've ever had to like kick a tire more than once. All right, a good while later, I finally got that wheel off. It was nice and rusty. And there's a lot of rust here, so I'm assuming I'm gonna have to smack this caliper, this rotor quite a bit to get it off. But yeah, welcome to the rust belt, I guess. Even then you guys will probably laugh, this probably isn't much rust. This is probably the most I've ever dealt with, so funny as it may be, we got to keep going here. Okay, here's all this grinding. Here's where it came from. You can see it got nice and hot. You can see it's uneven. You can see here is why. So this pin is completely seized up in there. I'm going to try my best to get it out, get it cleaned up, and get it working. If not, we may be replacing this caliper bracket as well. All right, this rotor is also pretty stuck. So look, this is all the rust that came out of there, just so you have an idea. Super rusty. I had some PB blasters sitting on there, and I've got some PB blasters soaking on this. I'm gonna come back to it and see what I can do. As of right now, oh, if you can even see it on this. As of right now, nothing. We'll see. I may give it a little bit of heat too and some tapping, but we'll figure that out. Wire brushes and anti-seize for this. I think I already mentioned that. Typically, maybe I didn't, that was in my head, I think. Typically people ask me, not typically, sometimes people ask me, Ernest, why didn't you put anti-seize on that when you're putting it back together? Because out here stuff doesn't rust. But this one's definitely getting anti-seize, because I don't know if he's taking it back out of state. It's definitely from out of state. But yeah, it's gonna get some anti-seize and some cleaning when it goes back together. So typically I'd be using my knee mat that somebody sent me, but there's just such limited room in between these cars and these tight parking spaces that I am just on my knees again. Okay. So this is copper anti-seize. I don't use a ton of it, as there's like a bajillion pounds on this spindle here. I don't use a ton, as in like I don't use it that often, but I got the copper kind because somebody was explaining that like the graphite, basically when you crunch graphite, it just turns into smaller particles, whereas with metal, when you crunch metal, it just flattens out, so it's not going to break down as much as that graphite kind would. And yeah, that was my only reason. That ought to be enough. Make it easy for the next guy. A little messy, but easy. Okay, here's my patented little move here. It's not patented, but I put the rotor on backwards first to clean it, but in this case I'm going to put it on backwards to get anti-seize on it as well, because you can see on the old rotor there the spots where it had seize to that rim. So I'm going to put it on there, wiggle it around, and get anti-seize on both sides after I clean it too. Okay, never mind, that rim's really tight. I'll just put some on those spots here. It was a good theory, a good idea. Didn't pan out though, the way I expected. Yeah, you don't want to get this stuff on the rotor face itself, so just be careful. That's where they seized up around those studs. Bada bing, bada boom. Doesn't look pretty, but it will keep that from getting stuck again. And then we'll clean this front side. Bracket is on. So far I have not been able to get this loose. I put it on in my last probably feeble attempt to get this loose. That way it can sit still and I can grab it with something and try and twist it, wiggle it loose. It looks like it's not working, so I'll talk to the customer. I know he needs the vehicle ASAP, and I'll probably have to order one of these in. I'm going to put it together and just talk to him about getting this replaced here in the following day. So I'll let you know how that goes. So yeah, hopefully I can get it off here real quick though. So as I compress that piston, I'm watching this reservoir to make sure I don't overflow it, since it was kind of full, but it looks like we've gotten quite a bit of fluid out the back, which is good. I was waiting on that one. So we'll go ahead and close off that back line as well, and finish up here up front. All right, these lines back here are completely bled. We'll clean everything up and we'll be done back here. All right, so here we are. Luckily I was able to take up a couple of spots here, but this truck's just so wide it wouldn't fit in these narrow spots really close. I went ahead and got the driver's side caliper and bracket for the customer, so we're gonna go ahead and replace that since that pin is seized. Okay, swap this out now, make sure we've got plenty of fluid up top so we don't get any air in. Oh, here's something that I gotta point out as well. I forgot when I went to the store. That sway bar inlet really needs to be replaced. Here we are. Regardless, we'll swap this caliper out and then we'll be putting everything back together here. Okay, here we are. We've got this installed. I need to bleed it now, and I've got to take this pin out so that I can actually slide this all the way on, get the brake pads in, and it will be done here. So a lot of people often ask me, because what I'll do is I'll pinch the part here while I put everything together to keep the fluid from getting out. Everybody's like, well, why don't you just put some line, pinch and pliers on there, some vice grips. I don't like to pinch the brake lines So if they're dry rotted or anything and they crack, then it's going to be my fault if they bust. I just like to not mess with them. Don't pinch them if I don't need to. If it was an emergency or something, I would, but I just make sure that reservoir is topped off, and I've got a pan under here so it can just drip if it needs to, and it's got, you know, probably 10 minutes worth of dripping it could do before it's completely empty. Maybe 5, but plenty more than I need. And I probably, you know, had about 30 seconds worth of dripping, got everything tightened down, and it's good to go. So that's the way I like to do it. All right, here we are. I'm just getting cleaned up on this side. It's in. It's just starting to gravity bleed now, so I'm going to pump the brakes slowly once or twice till some fluid comes out. Then we got to get all the fluid cleaned up that's on these lines and stuff, and then put the tire back on, so we're ready to go here. And then we'll move over to the other side. Should be pretty smooth since this was the bit of the unknown side here. Okay, we're ready for that tire. It's all done here. That just got done gravity bleeding. I don't know if I showed you or not. Pumped it once, came back, watched the air come out, let it run for a few moments with a heavy flow, and it's all done. All right, this tire wasn't quite so bad because, I don't know, not quite as much rust, I don't think. The reason these ones are so tough is because they're really cinched around just this center ring right here. Going back on is not a problem because I can just put the impact on and use the star pattern and just push it down, but getting it off is quite a bit different. And these tires have got some serious curb rash, so whatever this guy's doing, he does construction, so he probably just pulls up on the curb. I'm going to tell him not to do that. Here's what happened. I just realized, I'm like, where's that other brake pad? It's right here. It fell out, and the metal shim is what that is. What happens when that happens is the pistons go all the way out, and the pistons become the surface that you're braking on. So, I mean, yeah, he had to have known his brakes were going out before they went out. So, just be smart. You know, if something seems wrong, it's probably wrong. So, yeah, that's what happened. You can see here, let me give you a little closer look. The piston just came out, rode against that rotor surface, yanked it, broke the seals, and that's where you lose your fluid. So don't ride on your brakes when they're grinding, please. Okay, I've got the bracket on there. Hopefully you can see a little bit what's going on here. I'm getting these brake pads in. I'm gonna get this bracket tightened down, and then we'll swap over the caliper. What most likely happened was there was two separate issues on the other side. There was a stuck caliper pin which tore up that rotor, but you can see the cracking in these rotors here. That's from very high heat, so you want to take it easy on your brakes. You get them really hot, the pads can fall out. I've seen it before. I haven't seen somebody completely demolish everything before, but it happens once the pad's completely gone. The amount of space that it takes up, the pads themselves can slide out from behind the bracket. So obviously he didn't wear the backing plate all the way down, but it can fall out, and then you've got this kind of mess to deal with. So you just want to be aware of what's going on with your brakes. Is this your car here? No. Is this your car? Oh, no. Okay. I was gonna say, I'll get out of your way. All right, so there's that. That's again that method without using hose clamps. Just get the new, I got the new caliper on and just switch the hose over real quick, and just, you know, I have enough fluid so that way I'm not pinching the hose and it doesn't run the risk of breaking. Okay, that's it. We will get the tire back on, put some anti-seize right here, and be good to go. All right, so we've got this wheel torqued back down. We're just gonna remove the jack and the jack stands and clean up. Yeah, that's the one thing about brakes. I hate the feeling of brake fluid on your hands, and then it gets on your tools. It's slimy, it eats up paint. So my least favorite fluid. All right, we've got these two we need to return for cores. Pick up that jack, and the last thing is pump the brakes. Make sure they get nice and hard. All right, we got those brakes all pumped. This is a job well done. Quite a scary job not to do, but quite a scary situation that caused it. And anyways, job well done. This is the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.